just as a reminder, here's the incident involving the train station where Tommy Robinson punched someone. Let's just keep it at punch someone. We're not going to call it a violent attack yet. Here we go. It's very short, 12 seconds, so we'll play that again. You got it, yeah? So, I mean, first impressions for you folks. What was your first impression of that scene? Anything strike you as unusual through that video? I know it did for me. Let's start off with this one. Let's start off nice and slowly. Here's someone from the Sun reporting on the incident. Tommy Robinson flees UK hours after being filmed next to unconscious man. Now, maybe nothing here, but you know how we are with surnames on this channel. And the surnames, like for years we've heard people talk about ancestry and genetics and where people come from and where they don't come from and DNA, and everyone wants a DNA test, but surnames are the way to go. There's no two ways about it. It's the most traditional method of tracing back ancestry. Bottom line, if anyone wants to receive rigged results for their DNA which determines your self-identity, then go for 23andMe. Go for 23andMe, and don't be concerned that you can send your dog spit and they'll tell you come from Africa or Alaska. But yeah, your surname, or a surname. And here we have someone from the Sun reporting, and his name is Creed. Sam Creed. The surname exists. First time I read it, I thought of Apollo Creed in Rocky. Nothing to do with this, the content today, but Creed, an unusual surname, but it does exist. Why is it always that the surname is in line with the subject matter, or it at the very least intersectionalizes with the content or the subject matter? Sam Creed. The surname Creed has a long and fascinating history that dates back centuries, believed to have originated as a nickname for someone who was known for their honesty, integrity, or religious beliefs. The name itself is derived from the English word creed, which means belief or faith. And the irony is, this is the media we're speaking about. Honesty, integrity, and religious beliefs, belief or faith. But it also, with regards to, because what it is with these reporters, they only get assigned certain cases. It's like government. You'll have governmental ministers, you'll have transport secretary, you'll have foreign secretary, you'll have home secretary. It's the same with the media. They'll have a sports representative, they'll have kind of like a regional representative, a weather representative. And so this Creed, Sam Creed, I've seen him a few times, and he does specialize in these fields, the fields that we speak of, whether it's Tommy Robinson or like the reporting on home soil. Personally, I think these are assumed names, because even if this guy exists, this Sam Creed, he most certainly is Masonic. Like, you have to be, you know, the whole of football, every single player now is Masonic. And I know this is unrelated to football. When you get to these positions, there is at least some degree, no pun intended, of fraternal linkage. So Sam Creed, let's show a few images now. And I don't even know if all of this means anything, in the sense of whether someone is behind it all and constructing this narrative and say, alright Tommy, this is how it's going to pan out. You're going to do this, and then we're going to do that, and I don't even know if it's like a movie studio where they're, you know, performing choreography beforehand and rehearsing. I don't know, but I know that everything is geared towards the names, events, and performances all heading in one direction. And then we see these matchups, we see these synchronicities, and we see these strange meanings, and we see the codings. Like, that can only be if the source is one. And by source, I mean on a spiritual level, on a psychological level. If it's all from the same mind, the manifestations will run through each and every scene, each and every story. The fruit never falls far from the tree. So British Transport Police were waiting for the far-right activist after he fled the country following an alleged assault at St Pancras station. So we have this guy lying on the floor, face down, with his arms tucked in his nether regions. I'm asking how. I've seen plenty of street fights on social media. I've seen plenty of just fights in general. We've all seen fights, whether it be in real life or on these devices. I've never seen anyone get punched in the face and fall in this position. It can't be. I mean, how? How does someone fall in this position so perfectly? And he's not even knocked out, because similar to how rigor mortis kicks in when someone dies, he is still stiff here, which means he is not unconscious. There is still there's no relaxation here, so there's muscle activation here to keep his feet propped up, or toes propped up, perpendicular, near enough perpendicular. So how does that occur? That could only be if he is conscious. And how are his hands not to the side, like flailed to the side? How come it's this perfect? And some might say that they've moved him in that position. But why would you move him? If you'd move him to the side, away from this entry-exit point where there's gonna be a stampede, or should be a stampede. There should be a stampede, shouldn't there? But you'd move him to the side. You wouldn't move him in this most weird of recovery positions. This is the reverse recovery. This is if you want to kill someone. If you want to kill someone, instead of saving them, you put them in this position. There isn't a worse position. So someone's placed him in this position. Why would they do that? And why the heck has he got a bin bag over his head? Who's done that? They're really trying to end him, aren't they? They want to suffocate him after he's been punched. They want him to suffer a stampede, and they put him in the worst recovery position where the airways are blocked. So this is very strange. Here we see Mr. Robinson in the background. We'll keep it respectable. We won't call him Rabbi's son today. Okay, so that's the first image. Now this is the scene, allegedly, apparently. This is the scene. I can tell you one thing. I can tell you one thing for now. This doesn't happen. This does not happen. This is an impossible scene. Impossible. Even if someone died, right, they would not close it off like that. They would do this. In fact, they do this. They would do this to keep the privacy, but they would not close this So they haven't closed these off. Even if someone was injured, they would not close an area of a station, and we'll come to discover why. Because of the sheer inconvenience for one of the busiest transport hubs in one of the busiest cities in the developed world. They won't do this for one person. Never. Ever, ever, ever. I've travelled on transport. We all have. Have we ever seen anything like this? Why have they done it in this case? Why? And why are the police allowing footage to be taken? Because this is not CCTV footage. This isn't CCTV footage. How is their footage being... Why? Since when do the police... We've all seen auditing videos. We've all seen body camera footage videos in police incidents. The first thing people do is clear the scene. Here you have someone behind the police, recording the scene. I find that strange. Now, these are a few images. Now, I'm not suggesting that this scene resembles this, but this St. Pancras situation, the way that guy is lying down, it does seem quite ritualistic, let's be real. With a bag over your head, dressed all in black, and someone's placed you in that position. It just seems quite Masonic. That's the first impression I got when I looked at the footage. Seems quite Masonic. Again, the guy doesn't have his trouser legs up like this, but this is just what it evokes. It's like an initiation ritual. Now, this is why I struggle to believe the previous image we saw. And it also segues into where we want to take this. That's St. Pancras Station in 2020. Approximately over 23 million journeys were made from St. Pancras, making it the most used London Underground station. So there's a London Underground part, and then there's the train station. But that's just a rough gauge of how many journeys are made at that station, at that hub. It was the first busiest station on the network. The first busiest station on the network. That's a daily average of 64,422.28 passengers starting or ending their journey here, and 18.75 passengers per service, giving it the 19th highest passenger to service ratio. This is from TfL data. So they're speaking of the underground station. Now you can kind of roughly gauge how much St. Pancras, because if they're joint stations anyway. So this is just more London based. Now St. Pancras is international and other destinations as well. So you can imagine how busy that whole station is, considering the underground version is the busiest on the network. My question is, where are the people? Where are the people? And who is this guy here? Who is this guy here? Let me tell you, at this time when it was taken, because it was roughly what, afternoon, late afternoon, early afternoon, this place is teeming. Full, like absolutely chock-a-block. There will be people coming up these escalators, there will be people walking here, walking there. There is no way you can have a guy laid out on the floor like that, in that silly position. No wonder the incident was no longer than 10 seconds or 12 seconds. Because Whatever they did, they had to do it quickly. But I don't even think there's. In fact, let me ask a question: Is there any possibility to figure when this footage was even taken? Is there a? Because remember, this isn't CCTV footage, is it? Because CCTV footage would have the data sets on them, whether it be time, the camera number, unless they've cleared that for aesthetic purposes. When I say they, I mean the media. But this footage just seems, yeah, this footage is from an individual, and there's always seems to be an individual there, ready and waiting for the precise time to take these award-winning shots. It always seems to be so, like we see with Minnesota. Just the guy calmly taking footage of a mass casualty event while everyone else is fleeing. But where are the people, we ask, at one of the busiest stations in London? Where are the people during prime time, afternoon, tourists, commuters? Just very odd scene. Also, I would just note the colours here. So St Pancras, the station, the colours here are white and blue. That seems to be the brand colouring for St Pancras. And we see this guy here now approaching, coming up the stairs, but I don't know what's in his hand. There and here. Here seems to be a phone. But here, again, I find that unusual. You don't see. Look, imagine you're traveling in your city, in a main city, wherever you live. I don't know, it's just very strange to see someone carrying two things in their hands. Usually people are empty-handed. If anything, they have a bag, but I can't quite figure what this guy's carrying in his left and then a phone in his right. Just seems odd. And this guy, can see him coming in that footage as well, and he says something to him, but I don't know who this guy is. You got this guy here as well, who's a member of staff. It seems he has a high visibility vest on. If it's one guy like this, they will have someone on at night as well. Now, this is what I want you to focus on here. This guy at the bottom of the escalator. Here. Who is this guy? And why is he masked up? Who is this guy at the bottom of the escalator? And why aren't there people coming up the escalator? Again, I repeat, they would not ever stop service here. They would not. Not only is it dangerous, it's all about passenger flow and putting pressure in stations, because by blocking this off in the busiest station on the network is actually a safety issue. It puts pressure on other areas unnecessarily, when all they could do is just pull the guy to the side where he isn't an inconvenience and await the emergency services to attend to him. But the station is empty apart from these three individuals. And who is this guy masked up? He's got something on his head, a white cap or helmet of sort, something like that, and it's almost balaclavaed up, as though he's intending to cover himself. And you can go through the footage again, right? The actual footage itself, the 12-second footage, and as the camera pans into this guy here, it swiftly moves back to the scene, as though they want you to avoid the focus on this guy. They don't want you looking here. But there can't be just one person coming up the escalators at this time. There can't. Impossible. And I think this is pretty much the latest. Officers worked at pace to gather evidence, including CCTV footage and witness statements. However, the victim did not wish to provide a statement to the investigation. The guy that was thumped and knocked out by Tommy Robinson doesn't want to chase it up anymore. He wanted to chase him up and argue with him to the point where things got violent. But after all is said and done, he doesn't want to chase the incident anymore. He's not pressing charges. The victim did not wish to provide a statement to the investigation. Following a review of the available evidence, the CPS concluded that there was not a realistic prospect of conviction and therefore there would be no criminal charges in this case. Either you have footage of Tommy Robinson attacking this guy or not. No further action will be taken over the incident at St Pancras, and when no further action is taken, the case is closed and there's nothing to investigate anymore. It's less hassle because there isn't a court case where information has to be gathered, information that may be compromising for an altogether very different reason. When I say hassle, information may even have to be created. And to hold a kangaroo court like that, it's just a lot of effort acting the whole event out. Maybe it doesn't even need to be acted. Maybe it's just a case for the editors and script writers to drip the masses as they usually do with each event. So yeah, no further charges on this event. It's understood the victim does not want to pursue charges and that CCTV footage showed him initially following Robinson as the activist walked away before he was hit. But even if he was following him, that doesn't... Is that not even... Why would you not want to chase up? Following is not an offence. It's not against the law. But again, we will never know because the footage just isn't there. Before he was hit, he says. Robinson said in an entry on X that he had been defending himself and questioned why he had been arrested. He wrote St Pancras, no case to answer. He calls it St Pancras as well. After police investigated, it has been proven I was the victim and I was within the law to defend myself. Why was I arrested at all? You had the footage. You knew I was the victim. You knew I was the victim. And it's just a timely situation before the lead up to September the 13th. One where he has adequately defended himself and at the end of it can now be considered righteous. Whereas the victim has egg on his face. I mentioned earlier that St Pancras branding is blue and white, and dark blue and white, and this is exactly what Tommy Robinson is wearing. Blue, black, white. Blue, let's see. Blue, black, white. St Pancras, the branding here, very dark blue and white. They're not saying anything there. Even this guy here dressed all in black. All in black. From head to toe. Who does that? Shoes, trousers, top, even the black bin bag over his head. The St Pancras link is there from the colours, yeah? The last time we had a peek at St George and the numerology behind St George, including St. George coming up to 66 in 2 ciphers, if I can remember. Here we have St. Pancras. During the persecution of Christians by Emperor Diocletian around 303 AD. For those that remember the last stream, 303 AD is the exact date that St. George also is reported to have been persecuted and killed. So St. George and St. Pancras died in the exact same year, 303 AD. Died on the exact same date as St. George, son of a wealthy Roman nobleman. After his mother's death, he was raised by his uncle Dionysius, converted to Christianity in Rome, influenced by a Christian leader named Marcellinus, martyrdom age of 14 during the persecution under Diocletian, beheaded in 303 AD. Tommy Robinson, according to his fans, is here to save the children. If it wasn't for Tommy, our children would be in peril. St. Pancras is the teenage martyr and patron saint of children. You got the first entry here, patron saint of children. I think it's clearer even on the wiki edit. St. Pancras, patron saint of children, 303 AD. Here, look, here we go. He's considered the patron saint of children, truthfulness, and those seeking employment. So now, it could have been any station in London. Any station in London. Waterloo. And the reason I've chosen these stations is because we're trying to get it as close to St. Pancras as possible in terms of the sheer flow of passengers, the sheer number of passengers travelling through these hubs. And in London you've got a few. One of them is Waterloo. It has a train station and an underground station. This is for those that are still skeptical about the numerological associations with the buzzwords that they churn out. It could have been Waterloo. You've got every cipher here. You've got 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 29, 30, 31 ciphers. Not one has a match. Not one. Let's go on to Victoria. Victoria has 1, 33. But remember, we did in Merchants of Menace, we've popped Victorian in there as well. Victorian in Merchants of Menace, that came to 33 as well. But in all of these ciphers, septenary only has 33. And Victoria, you could get why Victoria would have 33 as well. Queen Victoria was one of the, if not the greatest monarchs this country recognizes. We have Paddington, another underground slash mainline station. Nothing appears. Nothing of note, at least not in terms of where the ciphers and the numbers that we're focused on, which are like 33 and 66, and anything that points towards the Baal rituals. You got London Bridge as well. Absolutely nothing. Nothing. Another one, Fenchurch Street, which is Tower Hill, and Fenchurch Street is the train part. Nothing. No 33s, no 66s. So St. Pancras comes to in Sumerian, and it's exactly the way it's spelt at the train station. Sumerian, it comes to 666, and like Victoria, it comes to 33 in septenary. And you've seen 5 or 6 other train stations slash underground stations that had 0 numerological links, but St. Pancras has the most too, and one of them is 666. Again, I can only view it in the sense of that vortex, that even if someone isn't behind this choreographing, scripting it all, maybe it's a combination of scripting and just the vortex effect, but everything seems to be geared towards these Baal frequencies. And I just see it as if someone has been affected by this Baal mind virus, then anything and everything that consists of elements of the script will inherently have these associations in them. Whether it's intentional, like I say, whether it's choreographed, scripted in the traditional sense or not.